In today's class, I would be discussing the question Dickens's art of the portrayal of the underworld characters. Now, this question was once it had been set in the university exam, so I think I would discuss this question with you, and let us look at how Charles Dickens he has presented to his readers these underworld characters. We have done the two topics we have discussed, that is Oliver's character and uh, Oliver Twist as a social document of its times, that is Dickens as a social critic, and now this is the third uh, topic that we will be discussing. So let us move into the topic itself, and as we saw, we would have to uh, give the same introduction, that how Dickens was interested, or how he wanted to show the London underworld and how it functioned and he wanted to make his readers aware of the fact that how these people lived and how they operated, and it was a kind the way in which Dickens wanted to warn the readers of their evil influences. And in Oliver, as we know, how Dickens had shown this little boy as an embodiment of virtue, and how even though he is placed in such uh, you know evil situations or places, he survives. Now let us uh, try to look at some of these characters. And the first character who, of course, who would grab our attention, that is of course uh, Fagin the Jew. Fagin the Jew, and he is actually one of the main characters in this novel, and he might be called the second most important character after Oliver, and he plays a really big role in furthering the plot of this novel, and he has uh, quite a big role. Now, Dickens got the name of Fagin from his childhood friend Bob Fagin, and this Bob Fagin was his friend during his boyhood days, and he had been sympathetic to him during his days at the warehouse, where he was engaged as a the job of pasting labels on bottles. That was his job. Now, Dickens has recounted about this, and how he had met Bob Fagin, and how he took the liberty of using his name in Oliver Twist. So, during those times in the Victorian period, there was a feeling of anti-Semitism, that is anti-Jewish feeling, and perhaps Dickens was influenced by that. And therefore, in chapter 8 of the novel, that is the first time we meet Fagin, and the scene is when Oliver is brought to Fagin's den by the artful Dodger, and we get the description of this man. Quote, I am quoting from the novel: "In a frying pan which was on the fire, and which was secured to the mantel shelf by a string, some sausages were cooking, and standing over them with a toasting fork in his hand was a very old, shriveled Jew, whose villainous looking and repulsive face was obscured by a quantity of matted red hair. He was dressed in a greasy flannel gown with his throat bare, and seemed to be dividing his attention between the frying pan and a clothes horse over which a great number of silk handkerchiefs were hanging. So this is the first description of Fagin. And Dickens refers to him as a merry old gentleman. So that is the ironical description of Fagin as a person who was a kind of a father figure to the boys of his gang. So the young boys who were being trained to become pickpockets, he was there like a father figure. And he behaves most courteously with Oliver at first, and Oliver gets the impression that he is his friend and protector. Of course, Oliver is too young to understand that this man is actually he's not going to be his protector, and he does not realize, even when he catches a glimpse of the expensive trinkets and watches which Fagin had accumulated by stealing and robbing. And Oliver is really amused to see the game that the boys play with Fagin, and that appears to him to be quite a curious and uncommon game. And actually it is a game where the two boys have the task of robbing the gentleman, or rather robbing Fagin of his handkerchiefs and purse, like that, without Fagin being able to know. So the old Jew was really training his, within quotes, hopeful pupils. So Dickens really ironically explains this. And later on, Fagin is represented with animal imagery. He is described as a reptile, and as he is described as gliding stealthily along, creeping beneath the shelter of the walls and doorways. And he was really looking hideous. He was looking like a loathsome reptile and a thoroughly repulsive person. And when Oliver is recaptured from Mr. Brownlow's house, Fagin understands that he had Oliver in his toils, and in that dreary place, obviously Fagin tries to make him into a pickpocket. So he tries his best to keep his hold on Oliver. However, he fails to do so when, on that fateful night of the robbery, which is thwarted, Oliver is abandoned in the ditch and he is rescued. And how later Fagin is arrested, how he is arrested, and in chapter 52, titled "The Jew's Last Night Alive," Dickens presents a kind of a picture of Fagin where, as we see, he is sitting in his solitary cell as he is condemned to die. And during this time, he understands the desperate state he was in. So at the end of the novel, Fagin, who had tried to destroy Oliver, is himself destroyed. And his effort to prevent Oliver from knowing the true history of his birth by conspiring with monks, it does not materialize. And as we can see that when Fagin is hanged, Dickens also achieves his purpose. What purpose? Actually, by showing the triumph of good over evil. So that is something that Dickens uh, shows us, that evil will not survive or will not triumph. So the black soul of this old Jew is ultimately destroyed. So Fagin is like the devil, and when he is confronted with good in the shape of the little boy Oliver, he has to submit to him. Now, Dickens told his biographer, John Forster. John Forster was Dickens's biographer, and he has written a very detailed biography of Charles Dickens. He was also his friend. He has told about Fagin that he's such an out and outer, I don't know what to make of him. So actually he uh, portrayed Fagin in such a way that he aroused a lot of distaste and a lot of anger in the minds of the readers. So this is actually the portrayal of Fagin, and as we can see, he is the prime, you can say, the prime person who is responsible for all the misdeeds, all the evil deeds. So he is a master criminal, as we can see, and he is a trainer of would-be criminal. That is, he is going to train the boys under him to become criminals like him. And he is the associate of another criminal, William Sykes. And William Sykes, about whom we would be talking about, who is a housebreaker and a robber. Now, after Fagin, let us move on to another character who is a very resourceful boy, and that is Jack Dawkins, or the Artful Dodger. The Artful Dodger, that is his nickname, and he has gained this nickname because he is an expert in the technique of picking pockets. So this is the name that has been given to him by his comrades, by his friends, because he is an expert in the art of pickpocketing. And Oliver meets this Artful Dodger uh, just outside London when he is going to London, when he's about to enter London. And the Artful Dodger introduces him to Fagin and his gang. Now, the Artful Dodger, of course, we see how he takes little Oliver on this thieving expedition where they try to rob Mr. Brownlow, but they fail, and Oliver is caught, and he's taken to the police magistrate, Mr. Fang, and how he is ill-treated there, but since Mr. Brownlow does not press any charge against Oliver, he takes him, he is released. So later on, we see a lot of this character, the Artful Dodger, and we learn about his resourcefulness. And towards the end of the novel, he, as we see, he's a jovial kind of a boy. And later, when he is arrested by the police and he's produced in the court of law for trial, he remains cheerful. And he talks in a very light-hearted way. And he denounces the judge. He is sentenced to transportation to Australia. And he says that he did not expect any kind of justice from the court of law. So he, in a way, condemns the proceedings of the court. So this is the character of the Artful Dodger as we see him in this novel. He is a young would-be pickpocket, and quite an adept one at that. The next person is Charlie Bates. Now, Charlie Bates, he is one of the boys working for the old Jew Fagin, and he is also a sprightly young fellow. And like the Artful Dodger, he is also an expert in picking pockets. Later in the story, Bates, as we find, he is angry with Bill Sikes, as Sikes had killed Nancy. And Bates, Charlie Bates, is so angry that he attacks Sikes physically, though he is overpowered. So Charlie Bates is another boy who is part of this gang, Fagin's gang. There is one more boy here, that is, he is called Tom Chitling, and he has been trained by Fagin to carry out thefts and robberies, and he has already gone through a prison sentence when we first meet him. And he is in a relationship with this girl called Betsy, who is Nancy's companion, and often he comes to Fagin's den. Rather, Betsy comes to Fagin's den to meet this boy. Now we come to Oliver's half-brother, Monks. And Monks's real name is Edward Leaford. And he is, like Oliver, the son of Edwin Leaford. So Edwin Leaford is the father both of Monks, who is older, and Oliver, who is the younger son. But their mothers are different. Oliver is Edwin Leaford's illegitimate son, but Monks is the legitimate son. So Monks actually harbors a kind of hatred against the boy, Oliver, because he is his half-brother, and he tries his utmost to harm Oliver and to deprive him of his share of his father's property. And Monks is one of the villains in the novel, but ultimately his evil designs against Oliver are thwarted and frustrated by the good gentleman, Mr. Brownlow. And he then goes away to America with his portion of inheritance, and there he squanders it and meets a sad end. This person, Monks, is actually portrayed as a person who is subject to fits of epilepsy, and often this attack comes over him. So he is extremely he can be portrayed, he has been portrayed like an evil character, and he is always looking for ways to harm Oliver. The next person that we meet, the evil character, is William Sikes, or Bill Sikes as he is called. Now, by profession, Bill Sikes, as we have mentioned, he is a housebreaker and a robber. He's quite a formidable man, and in the criminal circles of the city of London, he is quite well known. He is a middle-aged stout man, and he is described as being very fond of drinking. Now, he is an arrogant and haughty kind of a man, and his attitude towards the others are like, he sounds very high-handed and arrogant. He speaks to them in a very bullying and a very condescending kind of a way. Though Fagin is a criminal, master criminal, Sikes treats Fagin as his subordinate. So he does not really show any kind of respect for Fagin, because he feels himself to be more important than Fagin. Now, Fagin has to listen to Sikes's dictates, and Sikes plans a daring burglary in the house of the Maylies, and he takes the boy Oliver to go to the small town where the burglary was to be committed, and the robbery then would be done. But he is, as we can see, he is a planner. He makes these plans, though of course he does not succeed. He does not succeed. And as we learn, some of his partners in crime have been executed. But for some reason or the other, he has always been able to escape from the clutches of the police. And while Fagin, as we see, he trains the boys for criminal activities, William Sykes actually does the job himself, and because he wants to reap a rich reward. And as we can see, Nancy, this young girl, is attached to this villain Sykes. And when Sykes becomes ill, it is Nancy who nurses him. However, he is not really kind towards Nancy, and he treats Nancy with great scorn, and ultimately, to escape from the consequences of his crime, he ultimately murders Nancy. And he tries to escape. His end comes when he gets caught in the rope when he had been trying to escape, and he is strangled to death. So his dead body is seen hanging in midair from the rope down which he was trying to slide to the ground. So he meets an end that he richly deserves. So this is the character of Bill Sykes, who is portrayed as a villain and as a one of the evil characters in this novel, Oliver Twist. Now there remains this young girl called Nancy, who has been brought up from her very childhood in a criminal environment, and she has been taught all the tricks of the criminal trade, and she is actually she helps Fagin when she recaptures Oliver from the streets. When Oliver is taken to Mr. Brownlow's house, and Mr. Brownlow takes care of Oliver for some time, and one day when he sent to a bookshop to deliver some books, Nancy and another person, they managed to capture him. So she brings him back to Fagin's den. However, she is sympathetic towards Oliver, and she tries to protect him when Sykes tries to harm him. And as we have seen, she is attached to Bill Sykes. She is not prepared to betray him, no matter what the temptation. And she comes to know from a private conversation between Fagin and Monks that Oliver's life is in danger. And therefore, she rushes to Rose Maylie, and she informs about this evil design, that Monks is going to harm this boy, harm Oliver. And she meets Rose Maylie twice, and this action on her part actually brings about her death, because it becomes known, and William Sykes, he suspects that Nancy has betrayed him, but in reality Nancy has not betrayed him at all. She had been faithful to him. She had not reported him against the police, but uh, she had not reported Sykes to the police, that is. But Sykes is very much suspicious, and he ultimately murders Nancy. So Nancy, uh, she has to come to this violent end. And though she leads this life of crime in this criminal environment, really she is a bit different, as we can see from the other characters in this novel, and the way she has to suffer at the hands of the this criminal called William Sykes. So Dickens, actually, as we can see, uh, he was writing this novel where he had portrayed the London underworld and the people who inhabited this London underworld. And his purpose, as we know, he wanted to show or bring before his readers a picture of the London underworld. Now, some of his readers, they did not like this, because they said that they did not want to hear about the people, such people who were criminals. But Dickens's purpose was to make them aware of the activities, the evil activities that they were performing. Now, Dickens's novel, uh, some of the critics have said that he has made uh, crime look glamorous, or he had really made these criminals to be attractive creatures or fascinating creatures, but that is not so. Actually, he has portrayed them as disgusting and repugnant, and he has painted crime and the criminals in all its deformity, in all their wretchedness. So actually it has this novel has been it has done a great deal for society, and during those times a series of novels became quite popular, and they were called the Newgate novels. The Newgate novels, uh, they were certain novels which were also called the Old Bailey novels, and they were published in England between from the late 1820s until the 1840s. And in these novels, the novelists, what they did was to glamorize the lives of the criminals they portrayed there, and they drew their inspiration from the Newgate calendar, and that was a biography of the famous criminals that were published at various times during the late 18th and early 19th centuries. Now, there were such novels as Richmond, which was published in 1827, and the History of George Godfrey, published in 1828, and Edward Bulwer Lytton, who was a Victorian novelist, published Paul Clifford in 1830, and Eugene Aram in 1832. William Harrison Ainsworth published Rookwood in 1834, which featured a villain called Dick Turpin. And there was another novel called Jack Sheppard, which was published in 1839, which was based on the life and exploits of this person called Jack Sheppard, who was a thief, and he had been hanged in 1729. So his life was made into a novel. So actually, uh, these novels glorified glorified the lives of the criminals. And Dickens was not doing that. Dickens was actually showing the criminals in his book in all their vile natures and in all their ugliness. So he was portraying first the localities, the filthy localities where they lived. In trying to depict the life of the criminals, he first portrayed the filthy place where Fagin and his boys lived, and the street in which the Jew's house is situated is very narrow and muddy, and the whole area is full of filthy odors. The children in that locality, they are described as crawling in and out of the houses or screaming from the inside. And the whole place is so squalid that Oliver is, of course, he feels like running away from there when he first reaches there. And the room where Fagin the Jew lives, it is described as a dirty room. It is a dismal and a dreary room. And therefore, we can see how Charles Dickens is presenting before his readers the dwelling places of these criminals and the criminals themselves. So he did not have any sympathy for the criminals, and he was not really going to portray them in a glorious way. So the crimes they are committing, those are condemned. And as we can see that Dickens portrays these criminals as having a kind of a fear, the fear of being arrested. And they are haunted by the fear of the police because of the possibility that the police might come to know the whereabouts of their hiding place. So when Oliver is taken care of in Mr. Brownlow's house temporarily, Fagin is anxious to have him back because he fears that Oliver would report him and he would be arrested. And therefore, we can see that these people, these criminals in the novel, they are always very apprehensive. And of course, the sad fate, ultimately how the criminals are portrayed, these people of the underworld, their sad fates are ultimately portrayed, how Fagin is hanged, Sykes is sort of hanged accidentally, and there is this how Nancy is murdered, and the Artful Dodger is transported. So all these things, you know, the ultimate consequences, what happens to these criminals. So we can really see how these people are ultimately they meet their, you know, ends, and the novelist is not at all interested in glamorizing them. He is showing them in all their sordid natures, in all their cruelty and their wickedness. So Oliver Twist is a kind of a gloomy book in that sense. It is a book which has been called a gloomy book, and somewhat not very suitable for readers because it portrays the inhabitants of the underworld. And the lesson that Charles Dickens wants to convey to his readers is the fact that crime never pays, that the criminals will be brought to book sooner or later. And this is a kind of, you can say, a moral or a didactic book where the novelist tries to impart some kind of a lesson to the readers. He wants to show the fact that the criminals and the criminal activities that have been portrayed here, those activities actually would not be tolerated and they would not succeed. Ultimately, they would be punished by the authorities. So, of course, we can, in conclusion, say that Dickens's portrayal of the underworld, the London underworld, is quite vivid. It is quite, you can say, uh, quite successful in this way, because he has shown his readers the way the underworld of London operated. So this is one of the topics that we have discussed today, and I will give you one note. I'll give you some notes, and another topic that is there, that is the ending of the novel, which I will give it to you in your group. So let us stop here.